You open your eyes, expecting the familiar comfort of your own bed, the gentle weight of your blanket, the soft glow of morning light peeking through your curtains, maybe even the distant hum of traffic or the chirp of a phone notification. But instead, you're greeted by a darkness so thick it feels almost alive, pressing in from every side. The air is cold and damp, heavy with the scent of old stone, mildew, and something else, something sharp and metallic like rusted iron and forgotten tears. You reach for your pillow, but your hand finds only rough, uneven stone, gritty with centuries of dust. There's no mattress, no sheets, no memory foam cradling your head, just the hard, unyielding floor beneath you and the chill that seeps through your bones. You try to sit up, but your muscles protest, stiff from a night spent curled on the ground. Your back aches in places you didn't know could ache. You blink, trying to adjust to the gloom, but the darkness remains stubborn, broken only by a faint, sickly light filtering through a tiny slit high in the wall. It's not enough to see by, but just enough to remind you that the world outside still exists, somewhere far, far away. You listen for the sounds of home, the kettle whistling, the gentle thud of footsteps in the hallway, the reassuring buzz of electricity. Instead, you hear the slow, steady drip of water echoing from somewhere unseen, the distant scuffle of rats, and the low, muffled groans of other souls trapped in this place. Every sound is magnified, bouncing off the stone walls and swirling around you, a constant reminder that you are not alone, and yet, somehow, more isolated than you've ever been. Your mouth is dry, your tongue thick and heavy. You taste the air, stale, sour, tinged with the memory of 1,000 unwashed bodies. You shiver, pulling your threadbare tunic tighter around your shoulders, but it does live. Addle to keep out the cold. There's a draft that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, sneaking through cracks in the walls, curling around your ankles, whispering secrets of all the prisoners who came before you. You try to remember how you got here, but your mind is foggy, as if the darkness has seeped into your thoughts as well. Was it a dream, some strange, medieval-themed escape room gone horribly wrong? You pinch yourself, half hoping to wake up in your own bed, but the pain is real, sharp, and immediate. This is no dream. This is your reality, at least for today. You think of your morning routine, the luxury of choosing what to wear, the ritual of coffee or tea, the simple pleasure of a hot shower. Here, there are no choices, no routines, no privacy, just the endless monotony of stone and shadow, broken only by the unpredictable rhythms of prison life. You wonder what time it is, but there are no clocks, no schedules, no way to mark the hours except by the slow crawl of light across the wall. As you sit in the darkness, the weight of your new reality settles over you like a second skin. You are a prisoner, trapped in a world that feels both ancient and alien. The comforts of home are a distant memory, replaced by the harsh, unyielding embrace of the dungeon. And yet, even here, in the heart of medieval misery, there are stories waiting to be discovered, secrets hidden in the shadows, moments of unexpected kindness, flashes of humor and hope. But before you can begin to make sense of this strange new world, one question burns brighter than all the rest. How did you end up here? How did you get here? Medieval crimes and justice. You sit in the darkness, mind racing, trying to piece together the events that led you to this cold, unwelcoming cell. In the modern world, you might expect a clear answer, a crime, an arrest, a trial, a sentence. But here, in the shadowy corridors of medieval justice, the path to prison is anything but straightforward. In fact, it's a winding, bewildering road paved with superstition, rumor, and the whims of those in power. You might be surprised to learn just how easy it was to find yourself on the wrong side of the law in the Middle Ages, and how little it sometimes took to end up exactly where you are now. Let's start with the obvious. In today's world, most people have a general sense of what's legal and what's not. There are laws written down and mostly accessible, and a system, however flawed, that tries to ensure fairness. But in medieval times, the rules were often unwritten, shifting, and enforced with a heavy dose of personal interpretation. The line between crime and bad luck was thin and sometimes invisible. You could be hauled off to prison for reasons that would make a modern lawyer's head spin. Imagine for a moment that you're living your ordinary medieval life. Maybe you're a baker, rising before dawn to knead dough and stoke the fire. Or perhaps you're a farmer, hands calloused from years of coaxing crops from stubborn soil. You keep your head down, pay your taxes when you can, and try not to draw attention. But in this world, even the most mundane actions can carry hidden risks. Let's say you're accused of stealing a loaf of bread. In the modern world, this might earn you a stern warning, a fine, or, at worst, a brief appearance in court. But here, theft is a serious offense, and the definition of theft is alarmingly broad. Did you pick up a fallen apple from the Lord's orchard? That's theft. Did you borrow a neighbor's tool and forget to return it? Theft. Did someone simply say you took something with no proof at all? That too could be enough to land you in trouble. But theft is just the beginning. The list of medieval crimes is long and often baffling. Gossiping about the wrong person, that's slander, and it could see you locked away. Failing to attend church, that's heresy, or at least suspicious. Ours behavior, wearing clothes that are too fancy for your station, that's a violation of sumptuary laws. Yes, there were actual rules about who could wear what, and breaking them could mean a stint in prison. Even something as innocent as baking bread that's too light or too heavy could be considered fraud, punishable by a night or several in the local jail. And then there are the truly strange offenses. Did you let your pigs wander into the village square? That's a public nuisance. Did your dog bite a nobleman's horse? That's destruction of property. Did you sneeze at the wrong moment during a church service? Well, that might just be bad manners, but in a superstitious age, it could be interpreted as a sign of witchcraft or demonic possession. Suddenly, you're not just a sneezer, you're a suspect. Of course, not all crimes were created equal. Some were deadly serious with punishments to match. Murder, arson, and treason were capital offenses, and those accused could expect little mercy. But for every major crime, there were dozens of minor ones. Petty theft, debt, drunkenness, even idleness that could see you thrown into prison for days, weeks, or longer. Sometimes the only real crime was being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then there's the matter of evidence, or, more accurately, the lack thereof. In the modern world, we expect a certain standard, proof beyond a reasonable doubt, witnesses, perhaps even forensic science. In the Middle Ages, justice was often a matter of reputation, rumor, and the persuasive power of your accuser. If a respected member of the community pointed a finger at you, that might be all it took. If you were a stranger, or poor, or simply unlucky, your chances of a fair hearing were slim. Trials, when they happened, were rarely the orderly affairs we imagine today. There were no defense attorneys, no presumption of innocence, no right to remain silent. Instead, you might be subjected to an ordeal, a trial by fire, water, or combat designed to let God decide your fate. Perhaps you'd be asked to carry a red-hot iron a certain distance or plunge your hand into boiling water. If you emerged unscathed, you were innocent. If not, well, the outcome was rarely in your favor. Sometimes the ordeal was less dramatic, but no less arbitrary. You might be asked to recite a prayer perfectly, or to find someone willing to vouch for your character. If you stumbled over a word, or if no one spoke up for you, that was evidence enough. The system was designed less to uncover the truth than to maintain order, and often to reinforce the power of those at the top. And let's not forget the role of superstition. In a world where disease, famine, and disaster were poorly understood, it was all too easy to blame misfortune on human malice or supernatural forces. Accusations of witchcraft, sorcery, or consorting with the devil could land you in prison, or worse. Sometimes, all it took was a neighbor's envy, a rival's grudge, or a simple misunderstanding. The line between justice and vengeance was thin and easily crossed. Even the act of owing money could be enough to see you locked away. Debtors' prisons were a grim reality, and the logic was as circular as it was cruel. You couldn't pay your debts, so you were imprisoned, which made it even harder to earn the money you needed to pay them off. Families were often left to fend for themselves, scraping together whatever they could to buy your freedom. In some cases, entire families were imprisoned together, their only crime being poverty. It's easy, from the comfort of the present, to shake your head at the absurdity of it all. But for the people of the Middle Ages, this was simply the way things were. The law was a living thing, shaped by custom, tradition, and the ever-shifting tides of power. Sometimes it protected the innocent. More often, it served the interests of the powerful, or simply reflected the fears and prejudices of the time. And yet, even in this harsh world, there were moments of mercy, flashes of humor, and unexpected acts of kindness. Some jailers were known for their compassion, sneaking extra food to prisoners or turning a blind eye to minor infractions. Some communities rallied around those accused, offering support and comfort in the face of injustice. And sometimes, the sheer absurdity of the system inspired laughter, even in the darkest of places. So, how did you end up here? Maybe you borrowed a neighbor's cloak and forgot to return it. Maybe you spoke out of turn at the wrong feast, or failed to bow low enough to a passing noble. Maybe you were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, caught up in someone else's misfortune. Or maybe, just maybe, you did nothing at all, except live in a world where justice was as unpredictable as the weather. Whatever the reason, here you are, a criminal by the standards of the Middle Ages, awaiting your fate in the cold embrace of the dungeon. The path that brought you here is as twisted and uncertain as the corridors outside your cell. But one thing is certain, your journey is just beginning. Now that you're guilty, what happens next? The world outside the dungeon is a blur now, a memory of sunlight, open air, and the distant echo of freedom. You're marched through a narrow, twisting corridor, the heavy tread of boots behind you, and the clank of iron keys somewhere ahead. The air grows colder with every step, thickening with the scent of damp stone and something far less pleasant. You try to steady your breath, but each inhale brings a new assault on your senses. The sharp tang of sweat, the sourness of old straw, the unmistakable reek of human misery. If you're used to the idea of a modern police station, bright lights, clean counters, the polite monotony of paperwork, prepare to let go of those expectations. There's no orderly queue here, no clipboard-wielding officer asking for your name and date of birth. Instead, you're herded forward, jostled by guards who seem to have perfected the art of impatience. Their faces are shadowed beneath battered helmets, their voices rough and clipped, barking orders in a dialect that's half familiar, half foreign. You stumble as you're pushed through a low, arched doorway, the stone worn smooth by centuries of shuffling feet. The room beyond is dim, lit only by a few flickering torches that cast long, jittery shadows on the walls. The floor is uneven, slick with something you'd rather not identify. You catch yourself on a splintered wooden bench, heart pounding as your eyes adjust to the gloom. Around you, chaos reigns. New arrivals huddle in small, anxious groups, clutching their meager belongings, if they have any left. Some are weeping quietly, others muttering prayers or curses under their breath. A few stare straight ahead, faces blank with shock. The guards move among them, prodding, shouting, occasionally pausing to inspect a prisoner's hands or search a bundle of rags for contraband. There's no privacy, no dignity, just the relentless machinery of Intark. Grinding on. You're ordered to stand, arms outstretched, as a guard pats you down with rough, calloused hands. He grunts, apparently satisfied that you're not hiding a dagger or a loaf of stolen bread. Your pockets, if you have any, are emptied, the contents tossed into a battered wooden box. There's no inventory, no receipt, just the unspoken understanding that you may never see your possessions again. Next comes the branding, thankfully not with hot iron, but with a crude tally on a parchment ledger. Your name is mangled beyond recognition, your crime reduced to a single word or symbol. If you can't pay a bribe or offer a favor, you're just another mark on the page, another body to be counted and forgotten. The noise is overwhelming. Somewhere nearby, a prisoner is shouting for water, his voice hoarse and desperate. Another is arguing with a guard, insisting on his innocence, but the words are lost in the din. Chains rattle, doors slam, and above it all, the low, constant hum of fear and uncertainty. You realize, with a jolt, that you have no idea how long you'll be here. Hours, days, weeks. Time seems to stretch and contract, measured only by the flicker of torchlight and the shuffle of feet. You're handed a bundle of rags, your prison clothes, if you can call them that. They smell of mildew and old sweat, and as you pull them over your head, you try not to think about who wore them last. There's no shower, no delousing, no attempt at hygiene. You're simply expected to adapt, to blend into the anonymous mass of humanity that fills these walls. The guards bark more orders, herding you and the other newcomers toward a heavy wooden door. It creaks open on rusted hinges, revealing a corridor lined with iron-barred cells. The air grows colder still, the light dimmer, the sense of foreboding heavier with every step. You pass faces pressed to the bars, some curious, some hostile, some simply resigned. A few call out, their voices echoing off the stone. Fresh meat. What's your crime? Got any coin? You keep your head down, clutching your bundle, trying to make yourself as small as possible. The guards seem to enjoy the spectacle, shoving you forward, laughing at your discomfort. You catch snatches of conversation, rumors of disease, tales of escape, whispered warnings about the jailer's temper. It's a world unto itself, governed by its own rules and hierarchies, and you are very much an outsider. At last, you're stopped in front of a cell. The guard fumbles with a ring of keys, selects one at random, and unlocks the door with a theatrical flourish. In you go, he grunts, giving you a final shove. The door slams shut behind you, the sound echoing down the corridor like a judge's gavel. You're left standing in the half-light, heart racing as the reality of your situation sinks in. You take a moment to absorb your surroundings. The cell is smaller than you imagined, barely wide enough to stretch your arms. The walls are slick with moisture, the floor littered with straw and scraps of cloth. There's a bucket in one corner, its purpose immediately obvious. A single narrow window, if you can call it that, lets in a sliver of light, just enough to illuminate the dust motes swirling in the air. You're not alone. In the far corner, a figure stirs, watching you with wary eyes. You nod, unsure whether to speak, but the silence between you is thick with unspoken questions. Who are they? What did they do? Are they friend or foe? For now, you keep your distance, settling onto a patch of straw and trying to make yourself comfortable. As you sit, the sounds of the prison wash over you, the distant clang of metal, the low murmur of voices, the occasional shout or cry. It's a symphony of suffering, punctuated by moments of grim humor, a joke shared between cellmates, a song hummed under someone's breath, a snatch of laughter that rises and falls like a wave. You realize, with a strange sense of relief, that you're not alone in your fear, your confusion, your longing for home. You think back to the world outside, to the routines and rituals you once took for granted. The predictability of modern life, appointments, alarms, the steady tick of the clock feels impossibly distant now. Here, time is measured in meals, if you're lucky, in the changing of the guard, in the slow, relentless erosion of hope. And yet, even in this place of darkness and despair, there are moments of connection, flashes of humanity that pierce the gloom. A fellow prisoner offers you a scrap of bread. A guard looks the other way as you trade stories with your cellmate. A shaft of sunlight finds its way through the window, warming your face for a brief, precious moment. You close your eyes, letting the sounds and smells of the dungeon wash over you. This is your new reality, a world of stone and shadow, of fear and resilience, of suffering and survival. You wonder what the next hours will bring, what challenges and surprises await you in the days to come. But for now, you focus on the present, the feel of the straw beneath you, the weight of the rags on your shoulders, the steady rhythm of your own heartbeat. You are here, in this place, at this moment. And as you settle into your cell, you can't help but wonder, what will it take to survive a day in this medieval prison? Now, as you begin to take in the physical reality of your new home, you realize that the true test is only just beginning. Your cell. Home sweet dungeon. You might have pictured a prison cell as a tidy little box. 4 walls, a barred door, maybe a narrow bed with a scratchy blanket, and a window with just enough light to read a letter from home. Perhaps you imagined a metal toilet in the corner, a sink with cold running water, and a guard who checks in every hour or so. But as you settle into your new medieval accommodations, you realize that reality is far less generous and far more creative in its discomforts. Your cell is a study in minimalism, though not the kind that graces glossy magazines. The walls are thick, uneven stone, slick with condensation and streaked with the greenish bloom of moss. The air is heavy, as if it's been trapped here for centuries, and every breath tastes faintly of mildew and something sourer, a scent that clings to your skin and settles in your hair. The floor is a patchwork of packed earth and ancient straw, the latter so old and trampled it's more dust than bedding. You shift your weight, feeling the grit work its way into your clothes, and try not to think about what else might be lurking in the straw. There's no bed, of course. The closest thing is a pile of rags in the corner, their original color long since lost to time and grime. You poke at them with your toe, half expecting them to move, and are rewarded with a small, indignant squeak as a mouse darts out and disappears into a crack in the wall. You can't help but smile, despite yourself. At least someone feels at home here. The cell is small, so small that if you stretch your arms, you can almost touch both walls at once. The ceiling is low, forcing you to stoop if you stand, and the only light comes from a slit high in the wall, barely wider than your hand. During the day, it lets in a thin, watery beam that crawls across the floor, illuminating the dust motes that dance in the air. At night, it's just another patch of darkness, indistinguishable from the rest. You run your fingers along the wall, feeling the roughness of the stone, the cold that seeps into your bones. Here and there, you find deep grooves, marks left by previous occupants, perhaps counting the days, or simply passing the time. You wonder who they were, what they dreamed of, what stories they left behind in these silent scratches. In one corner, a heavy iron ring is set into the wall, a length of chain attached. You eye it warily, unsure whether it's meant for you or for someone more dangerous. The chain is rusted, but still strong, and you imagine the countless wrists and ankles it has encircled over the years. It's a sobering thought, and you find yourself grateful in a strange way that you're not currently its intended occupant. The bucket in the opposite corner is your only amenity, and its purpose is immediately clear. You wrinkle your nose, trying to ignore the smell and make a mental note to use it as little as possible. Privacy is a luxury you left behind at the prison gate. Here, everything is communal, even the most basic needs. You listen to the sounds of the cell, the soft scurrying of mice, the distant drip of water, the occasional groan or cough from neighboring cells. Every so often, you hear the unmistakable squeak of rats, bigger, bolder, and far less charming than their smaller cousins. You pull your feet up, tucking them beneath you, and try to convince yourself that they're more interested in crumbs than in toes. Despite the discomfort, there's a strange coziness to the space. The walls, thick as they are, muffle the worst of the outside noise, creating a bubble of quiet in the midst of chaos. The straw, though scratchy and musty, offers a little insulation from the cold. You find yourself settling in, arranging your rags into something resembling a nest, and taking stock of your new home. You notice, too, the little touches left by previous prisoners. A crude drawing scratched into the stone, a bit of string tied around a nail, a tiny pile of pebbles arranged in a careful pattern. These small acts of defiance, of creativity, remind you that you're not the first to endure this place, and that, somehow, people have always found ways to make even the bleakest spaces their own. You try to imagine what a medieval room tour would sound like. Here's my bucket, Ket. Here's my chain. And over here is my prized collection of pebbles. You almost laugh, the absurdity of it all breaking through your fear. There's a comfort in humor, even here, and you cling to it like a lifeline. You take a moment to check your own belongings, if you have any left. Maybe a scrap of cloth, a wooden spoon, a lucky charm tucked into your sleeve. These small items take on outsized importance, tokens of the world outside, reminders that you are more than just a prisoner. You tuck them safely into a corner, hoping they'll still be there in the morning. As the hours pass, you become attuned to the rhythms of the cell. The light shifts, growing brighter, then dimmer, marking the passage of time in a place where clocks are meaningless. You learn to distinguish the footsteps of the guards from those of your fellow prisoners, to recognize the subtle changes in the air that signal a change in weather outside. You find yourself listening for the sound of your own breath, grounding yourself in the present, reminding yourself that you are still here, still alive. You think about the comforts of home, the softness of your bed, the warmth of a blanket, the simple pleasure of a hot drink on a cold morning. Here, every comfort is magnified by its absence. Every small pleasure a memory to be savored. You promise yourself that if you ever make it out, you'll never take these things for granted again. And yet, even in this place of deprivation, you find moments of unexpected peace. The quiet, when it comes, is deep and profound, a stillness that settles over you like a blanket. You close your eyes, letting your mind drift, and for a moment you almost forget where you are. But the cell is not just a place of solitude. You sense, more than see, the presence of others, voices drifting through the walls, footsteps echoing in the corridor, the shifting weight of someone else in the darkness. You realize, with a mix of relief and apprehension, that you are not alone in this place. You wonder who your cellmate are, what stories they carry, what secrets they keep. Are they friends or foes, kindred spirits or rivals? The answer, you suspect, will shape your days and nights in ways you can't yet imagine. As you settle into your nest of straw and rags, you listen for the telltale signs of life. A cough, a sigh, the soft murmur of conversation. You steel yourself for the next chapter of your journey, knowing that in the world of the medieval dungeon, survival is as much about who you share your cell with as it is about the cell itself. But you're not alone. Who are your cellmates? You're not alone in your cell, and you're certainly not alone in this prison. As your eyes adjust to the gloom and your ears tune to the rhythms of dungeon life, you begin to sense the presence of others, some close by, others just voices drifting through cracks in the stone. The medieval prison is a world unto itself, and its population is as varied and unpredictable as the crimes that brought them here. Your first cellmate is a wiry, sharp-eyed man with a nose that's been broken more than once and a grin that's equal parts mischief and warning. He introduces himself as Will, though you suspect that's not his real name. Will claims to be a professional, though what profession he means is anyone's guess. He's quick with a joke, quicker with a story, and seems to know everyone and everything that happens within these walls. He tells you he's here for borrowing a horse, just for a night, mind you, and only because he needed to get home before curfew. You get the sense that Will has spent more nights in cells than in his own bed, and that he's made a kind of peace with it. In the opposite corner sits Agnes, a woman of indeterminate age with a face weathered by sun and sorrow. She's wrapped in a shawl that might once have been blue, and she clutches a small wooden cross as if it's the only thing keeping her tethered to this world. Agnes is here for debt. Her husband died last winter, and the landlord wasted no time in calling in what was owed. She speaks little, but when she does, her words are sharp and clear, cutting through the gloom like a bell. You sense a quiet strength in her, a resilience born of necessity. Then there's Tom, a boy no older than 15, with wide eyes and a nervous energy that makes him seem even younger. He was caught poaching rabbits on the Lord's land, though he insists he was only trying to feed his family. Tom is quick to trust, eager for friendship, and desperate for reassurance. He clings to you in those first hours, asking questions about the outside world, about your own story, about whether you think he'll ever see his mother again. As the hours pass, you meet more of your fellow inmates. There's Father Bernard, a disgraced priest accused of heresy for preaching ideas that didn't sit well with the local bishop. He spends his days muttering prayers and his nights debating theology with anyone who'll listen. There's Marjorie, a midwife accused of witchcraft after a difficult birth ended in tragedy. She's fierce and unafraid, her laughter echoing down the corridor, daring anyone to challenge her. You're surprised by the diversity of the prison's population. In the modern world, you might expect a certain type of dangerous inmate, people hardened by crime, shaped by violence. But here, the lines are blurred. Some are here for acts that would barely raise an eyebrow today, owing money, speaking out of turn, wearing the wrong color on a feast day. Others are here for reasons that are still mysterious, even to themselves. A few, like Will, seem to thrive in this environment, while others, like Tom and Agnes, are simply trying to survive. You learn quickly that trust is a precious commodity. Will offers to show you the ropes, how to trade a scrap of bread for a favor, how to avoid the attention of the meanest guards, how to tell when a fight is brewing. But he also warns you to keep your secrets close. Everyone's got a story, he says, and not all of them are true. Agnes, for her part, keeps her distance, watching you with wary eyes. She's seen too many newcomers come and go, too many promises broken. The oddballs are the ones who make prison life bearable in their own strange way. There's old Jack, who claims to have been imprisoned since the reign of the last king, and who tells wild tales of dragons and buried treasure. No one believes him, but everyone listens, if only for the distraction. There's Alice, who sings lullabies in a voice so sweet it almost makes you forget where you are. And there's the silent man in the next cell, who never speaks, but carves intricate patterns into the stone with a bit of broken pottery. You begin to see the prison as a kind of community, bound together by circumstance and necessity. There are alliances and rivalries, friendships and feuds. Some prisoners look out for each other, sharing what little they have. Others are quick to exploit any weakness, any sign of fear. You learn to read the room, to sense when it's safe to speak and when it's better to keep your head down. The guards, for their part, are a constant presence, sometimes indifferent, sometimes cruel, occasionally surprising you with a moment of unexpected kindness. They play favorites, accept bribes, and enforce the rules with a heavy hand. But even they are part of the ecosystem, their moods and whims shaping the daily life of the prison. You find yourself drawn to certain people, wary of others. Will's humor is infectious, and his stories help pass the endless hours. Agnes's quiet strength is a comfort, a reminder that dignity can survive even here. Tom's hopefulness is both heartbreaking and inspiring, a spark of innocence in a place that seems designed to snuff it out. You also learn to be cautious. Not everyone is what they seem. Rumors swirl through the CE, owls like smoke, who's planning an escape, who's hiding contraband, who's made a deal with the guards. Trust is earned slowly and sometimes lost in an instant. You keep your own secrets, sharing only what you must, always watching, always listening. The diversity of your fellow inmates is a constant source of surprise. There are hardened criminals, yes, men and women who have committed acts of violence, who carry the scars of old battles. But there are also the unlucky, the misunderstood, the victims of circumstance. Some are here for reasons that make sense, others for reasons that defy logic. The only thing they all have in common is that, for now, they are your companions in this strange, shadowy world. You begin to understand that survival here is about more than just enduring the discomforts of the cell. It's about navigating the complex web of relationships, learning who to trust, who to avoid, who to befriend. It's about finding moments of connection, of laughter, of shared humanity, even in the darkest of places. As you settle in, you feel the first pangs of hunger, a reminder that, in this world, even the most basic needs are never guaranteed. Your stomach growls, echoing off the stone walls, and you realize that the next challenge is about to begin. Hunger strikes, and you can't help but wonder, what does a medieval prison have to offer for dinner? Hunger is a patient, persistent companion in the dungeon. It starts as a gentle nudge, a hollow ache in your belly, but soon grows into a gnawing presence that refuses to be ignored. You find yourself thinking of food with a kind of longing that borders on obsession. Warm bread, ripe fruit, a steaming bowl of stew. Even the blandest modern cafeteria meal, the kind you might have once pushed aside with a sigh, now seems like a feast, fit for royalty. But here, in the medieval prison, the menu is a far cry from anything you'd recognize as a meal. There are no trays, no choices, no line of servers in hairnets ladling out portions. Instead, you wait, stomach rumbling as guards make their rounds with a battered wooden bucket and a ladle that's seen better days. The smell hits you first, a sour, yeasty tang mixed with something earthy and indefinable. It's not exactly appetizing, but it's food, and that's all that matters. When your turn comes, you're handed a chunk of bread so hard it could double as a weapon. It's dense, dry, and studded with mysterious seeds and the occasional pebble. You gnaw at it, trying not to break a tooth, and tell yourself it's rustic, artisanal, maybe even healthy. Will, ever the optimist, jokes that it's aged for flavor, but you suspect it's just old, very old. Next comes the pottage, a thin, watery gruel ladled into a wooden bowl. It's a murky, grayish brown, flecked with bits of cabbage, turnip, and, if you're lucky, a scrap of meat. The taste is bland, with a hint of bitterness that lingers on your tongue. You eat it anyway, grateful for the warmth, and try not to think about what might be floating just below the surface. Tom, sitting beside you, makes a face but slurps it down, hunger winning out over taste. On special days, if you can call them that, you might get a piece of cheese, hard and sharp, or a boiled egg with a shell that's nearly impossible to peel. Sometimes a guard will toss in a handful of dried beans or a shriveled apple, more for variety than nutrition. The portions are small, never enough to truly satisfy, and you learn quickly to eat slowly, savoring every bite. Water is another matter entirely. There's no fresh, clear stream or bubbling fountain here. Instead, you're given a cup of tepid liquid that tastes faintly of iron and moss. You drink it anyway, knowing that thirst is even harder to ignore than hunger. Occasionally, you catch a whiff of ale or weak beer, safer than water if you can get it. But those are rare treats, reserved for the guards or the prisoners with friends in high places. You listen to your cellmates swap stories about food from the outside world. Will reminisces about roast goose and honey cakes, his eyes shining with memory. Agnes talks about the simple pleasure of a hot onion soup, thick with bread and herbs. Even old Jack, who claims to have forgotten the taste of anything but gruel, describes a pie so delicious it made him weep. These stories are a kind of sustenance in themselves, a reminder that there is a world beyond these walls, a world where meals are more than just survival. You can't help but compare this to the meals you've known, the bland but filling trays of a school cafeteria, the late-night snacks scavenged from your own kitchen, the endless options of a modern grocery store. Even the worst airplane meal, with its rubbery chicken and mystery sauce, seems like a distant luxury now. Here, food is not about pleasure or choice. It's about endurance, about making it through another day. There's a certain camaraderie in sharing a meal, even a meager one. You and your cellmates trade bites, swap stories, and sometimes, if someone is feeling generous, pool your scraps for a makeshift feast. A crust of bread becomes a treasure, a sliver of cheese a cause for celebration. You learn to appreciate the small things, a warm bowl, a shared laugh, the simple act of eating together. Of course, not all meals are peaceful. Fights break out over the last piece of bread. Accusations fly about stolen rations, and the guards are quick to punish anyone caught hoarding or trading food. You learn to keep your head down, to eat quickly and quietly, to hide your hunger as best you can. The rules of the dungeon are simple. Take what you're given, don't complain, and never, ever let anyone see how much you want more. Sometimes you get creative. Will shows you how to soften stale bread by soaking it in water, turning it into a kind of mush that's easier to swallow. Agnes teaches you to savor the flavor of a single bean, rolling it on your tongue like a piece of candy. Tom, ever resourceful, manages to catch a mouse once, and though most of you refuse to even consider it, old Jack insists it's a delicacy. Tastes like chicken, he claims, though you're not convinced. You find yourself daydreaming about food, your mind wandering to the meals you once took for granted. A hot cup of tea, a slice of fresh fruit, the smell of something baking in the oven. These memories are bittersweet, a reminder of what you've lost, but also a source of hope. If you ever make it out, you promise yourself you'll never waste a crumb again. Despite the hardships, there are moments of humor. Someone starts a game, rating each meal on a scale from barely edible to actively dangerous. Will invents elaborate recipes for the gruel. Today's special, pottage a la mystery meat, with a side of artisan stone bread. Laughter echoes off the walls, a small rebellion against the monotony and deprivation. You realize, too, that food is more than just sustenance here. It's a currency, a bargaining chip, a way to build alliances or settle scores. A crust of bread can buy you a favor. A sip of ale can earn you a friend. The politics of the prison are played out over every meal, and you learn to navigate them with care. As you scrape the last bit of gruel from your bowl, you feel a dull, lingering hunger, a reminder that in this place, satisfaction is always just out of reach. But you also feel a strange sense of accomplishment. You've survived another meal, another test, another small victory in the daily struggle of dungeon life. Hunger sated, if only for a moment, you find yourself wondering, what do you do all day, trapped in this world of stone and shadow? Time in the dungeon is a strange, slippery thing. Without clocks or calendars, the hours stretch and contract, sometimes crawling by so slowly you can feel each heartbeat, sometimes vanishing in a blur of noise and confusion. The light hat filters through the narrow window is your only guide, a pale sunbeam that creeps across the wall and then disappears, leaving you to guess at the hour. In the absence of routine, you become acutely aware of every moment, each one a small victory over the monotony or a new test of your patience. In the modern world, you might fill your days with books, television, or the endless scroll of your phone. Even in the most restrictive prisons, there are routines: exercise in the yard, classes, work assignments, maybe a library or a game of cards. Here, in the medieval dungeon, there is none of that. There are no books to read, no screens to distract you, no scheduled activities to break up the day. Instead, you are left with your own thoughts and the company of your fellow inmates. At first, the boredom is overwhelming. You pace the cell, counting the stones in the wall, tracing the patterns of cracks in the ceiling. You listen to the sounds of the prison, the distant clang of a gate, the muffled voices of guards, the occasional shout or cry from another cell. Every noise is a reminder of your confinement, every silence a challenge to your sanity. But humans are nothing if not adaptable, and soon you begin to find ways to pass the time. Storytelling becomes the lifeblood of the dungeon, a way to escape the present by slipping into the past or imagining a different future. Will is a master of the art, spinning tales of daring escapes, lost loves, and fortunes won and lost. Some stories are true, most are not, but it hardly matters. The act of telling and listening is enough, a shared ritual that binds you to your cellmates and makes the hours a little less heavy. You take turns sharing your own stories, real or invented. Tom tells of his adventures in the woods, hunting rabbits and dodging the Lord's men. Agnes recalls the festivals of her youth, the music and laughter that once filled her village. Even old Jack, who rarely speaks, offers up a memory now and then, a glimpse of a world that seems impossibly distant. Games, too, become a vital distraction. Tion. With no cards or dice, you improvise with whatever you can find. Pebbles become game pieces, straw is twisted into makeshift tokens, and the lines scratched into the dirt serve as game boards. You invent new rules, argue over old ones, and keep score with bits of string or notches on the wall. The games are simple, guessing games, riddles, contests of memory or wit, but they are fiercely competitive, and the stakes, though imaginary, feel real. Sometimes the entertainment takes a stranger turn. Marjorie, the midwife accused of witchcraft, claims she can read fortunes in the patterns of spilled water or the shapes of shadows on the wall. She offers to tell your future for the price of a crust of bread or a whispered secret. You're skeptical, but curiosity wins out, and soon you find yourself squinting at a puddle, searching for signs of hope or danger. Music, too, finds its way into the dungeon. Alice, with her sweet, clear voice, sings lullabies and old ballads, her songs echoing through the corridors and lifting spirits in the darkest hours. Others join in, humming or tapping out rhythms on the stone. The music is a balm, a reminder of beauty and joy, even in a place designed to crush both. You discover that alliances form quickly in the dungeon, often around shared interests or mutual needs. A group of prisoners organizes a nightly storytelling circle, trading tales for scraps of food or a place near the warmest corner. Another group invents a secret language, a code of gestures and whispers that allows them to communicate under the noses of the guards. These alliances are fragile, shifting with the moods of the inmates and the whims of the jailers, but they offer a sense of belonging, a small measure of control in a world where so much is out of your hands. Of course, not all pastimes are so innocent. Some prisoners gamble with what little they have, betting on the outcome of games or the likelihood of a guard's favor. Others plot escapes, real or imagined, drawing elaborate maps in the dirt and whispering plans late into the night. Rumors swirl about hidden tunnels, bribed guards, and secret passages, most of them nonsense, but all of them fuel for the imagination. You find yourself drawn into these schemes, if only for the thrill of possibility. The idea of escape is intoxicating, a spark of hope that keeps you going when the days grow long and the nights colder. Even if you know deep down that the chances are slim, the act of planning is its own kind of freedom. Fear, too, is a constant companion. The threat of punishment hangs over every game, every whispered conversation, every act of defiance. The guards are unpredictable, their tempers quick to flare. A careless word, a misplaced laugh, a game that goes on too long, all can bring swift retribution. You learn to watch, to listen, to sense the mood of the prison and adjust your behavior accordingly. Yet, in the midst of all this, there are moments of genuine connection. You share a joke with Will, a song with Alice, a memory with Agnes. You find comfort in the routines you create, the small rituals that mark the passing of time. You realize that, even here, life goes on, improvised, imperfect, but undeniably human. You think of the world outside, of the endless distractions and comforts you once took for granted. Here, every moment is magnified, every pleasure hard-won. You learn to savor the taste of a good story, the thrill of a close game, the warmth of a shared laugh. You discover reserves of patience and creativity you never knew you had. But the day isn't all boredom and games. Beneath the surface, danger lurks, unpredictable, ever-present, waiting for the unwary. The next challenge is never far away, and you sense that the true test of survival is yet to come. If boredom is the slow, steady drumbeat of dungeon life, danger is the sudden crash of cymbals, a jolt that keeps you alert, even when exhaustion threatens to pull you under. In the medieval prison, threats come in many forms, some obvious, others insidious, all of them woven into the fabric of daily existence. You learn quickly that survival is not just about enduring discomfort, but about navigating a landscape riddled with hazards, both seen and unseen. The first and most relentless enemy is disease. The air in the dungeon is thick and stale, heavy with the breath of dozens of bodies crammed into too small spaces. There is no fresh air, no sunlight to burn away the damp or the germs. The straw on the floor, already ancient and filthy, is a breeding ground for lice and fleas. You scratch at your scalp, your arms, your legs, feeling the tiny bites that never seem to heal. It's a constant, maddening itch, a reminder that your body is no longer entirely your own. Coughs echo through the corridors, harsh and wet, punctuated by the occasional groan of someone too weak to sit up. Fevers come and go, burning through the population like wildfire. There are no doctors here, no medicine, no hope of quarantine. If you fall ill, you are left to sweat it out on your patch of straw, hoping that your body is strong enough to survive. Sometimes, a sympathetic cellmate will bring you a cup of water or a scrap of bread, but more often, the sick are left alone, their suffering a grim background to the daily routine. You hear stories of outbreaks, plague, typhus, dysentery, diseases that sweep through the prison with terrifying speed. The guards, fearful of infection, keep their distance, tossing food and water through the bars and avoiding contact whenever possible. The dead are removed quickly, their bodies carted away in the early hours of the morning, but the memory of their suffering lingers. You learn to recognize the signs, the glassy eyes, the trembling hands, the sudden silence that falls when someone slips away. In the modern world, you might expect some measure of protection, clean sheets, regular medical checks, a nurse with a thermometer and a kind word. Here, there is none of that. Illness is a fact of life, as inevitable as the rising and setting of the sun. You do what you can to stay healthy, drink only from the cleanest cup, Avoid the sick when possible. Keep your wounds covered and your hands as clean as you can manage. But in a place like this, luck is often the only medicine. Violence is another constant threat, lurking just beneath the surface of daily life. The prison is a pressure cooker filled with people who are frightened, desperate, and often angry. Arguments flare over the smallest things: a scrap of bread, a place near the wall, a careless word. Fights break out with little warning, sudden and brutal, ending as quickly as they began. The guards intervene only when it suits them, sometimes breaking up a brawl with a blow from a club, sometimes watching with detached amusement. You learn to read the room, to sense when tempers are about to boil over. Will, ever the survivor, teaches you to keep your back to the wall, to avoid eye contact with the most volatile inmates, to offer a joke or a compliment when tensions rise. Agnes, with her quiet strength, is a calming presence, her very stillness a reminder that not all battles are fought with fists. Tom, young and eager, is quick to make friends, but just as quick to make enemies, his innocence both a shield and a target. There are bullies, of course, men and women who have learned that power in the dungeon comes from fear. They hoard food, demand tribute, and enforce their own rules with a mixture of charm and menace. Some are leaders, organizing their followers into tight-knit groups, while others are lone wolves, unpredictable and dangerous. You learn to steer clear, to keep your head down, to offer respect without appearing weak. But violence is not always physical. There is a subtler kind of cruelty here, a psychological warfare that can be just as damaging. Rumors are currency, and a well-placed lie can ruin a reputation or spark a feud. Secrets are traded like gold, and trust is a rare and precious commodity. You find yourself second-guessing every word, every gesture, wondering who is truly a friend and who is simply waiting for an opportunity. The guards, too, are a source of danger. Some are indifferent, going through the motions with a kind of weary resignation. Others are cruel, taking pleasure in the suffering of the prisoners, inventing new punishments for minor infractions. A few are corrupt, willing to look the other way in exchange for a bribe or a favor. You learn to watch their moods, to anticipate their routines, to avoid drawing attention whenever possible. Yet, for all the threats that surround you, there are moments of unexpected kindness. A guard slips you an extra piece of bread. A fellow prisoner shares a blanket. Someone offers a word of comfort when you need it most. These small acts of humanity are lifelines, reminders that even in the darkest places, compassion can survive. The discomforts of prison life are many and varied, each one a test of endurance. The cold is a constant companion, seeping into your bones and making every joint ache. The damp settles in your lungs, making each breath a struggle. The noise, endless, inescapable, wears on your nerves, a cacophony of coughs, cries, and the clatter of chains. Sleep is fitful, interrupted by the shifting of bodies, the scurrying of rats, the distant shouts of the guards. You miss the small comforts of the outside world, a soft bed, a warm bath, the simple pleasure of clean clothes. Here, everything is shared, everything is public, everything is a reminder of your loss of freedom. You learn to adapt, to find comfort where you can, a patch of sunlight on the wall, a moment of quiet, the warmth of another body nearby. The fear of the unknown is perhaps the greatest discomfort of all. Each day brings new rumors, new threats, new uncertainties. Will there be enough food? Will the guards be in a good mood? Will disease strike your cell next? The future is a blank slate, filled with possibilities, both hopeful and terrifying. Yet, in the midst of all this, you find reserves of strength you never knew you had. You learn to endure, to adapt, to find moments of joy and connection even in the bleakest circumstances. You discover that laughter is a powerful weapon, that hope can survive even in the darkest dungeon, that the human spirit is remarkably resilient. You also learn to appreciate the absurdity of your situation. There is a kind of dark humor in the daily rituals of prison life, the way everyone pretends not to notice the rats, the elaborate negotiations over a scrap of bread, the whispered jokes about the guards. You find yourself laughing at things that would have horrified you before, finding comfort in the shared experience of suffering. The unexpected is always lurking, ready to upend your carefully constructed routines. A new prisoner arrives, bringing fresh stories and new alliances. A guard is replaced, and the rules change overnight. A sudden illness sweeps through the cells, forcing everyone to band together or risk being left behind. Each day is a balancing act, a test of your ability to adapt and survive. You realize, too, that danger is not always external. The greatest threat may come from within, from the slow erosion of hope, the temptation to give in to despair. You see it in the eyes of the long-term prisoners, in the way they move through the days like ghosts, their spirits worn thin by years of deprivation. You fight against it, clinging to whatever scraps of hope you can find. A kind word, a shared joke, the memory of a better time. As night falls, the dangers of the day recede, replaced by a different kind of fear. The darkness is absolute, broken only by the occasional flicker of torchlight in the corridor. The sounds of the prison change, voices grow quieter, footsteps more cautious, the air thick with anticipation. You lie on your patch of straw, listening to the slow, steady breathing of your cellmates, the distant drip of water, the soft scurrying of rats. In the darkness, hope flickers, a fragile, persistent flame. You find yourself wondering, is there a way out? Can you escape this place, or at least survive it with your spirit intact? The question lingers as you drift towards sleep, a beacon in the night, guiding you through the dangers and discomforts of dungeon life. Escape. Fantasies and realities. As the darkness settles and the dungeon quiets, your mind drifts to the one thought that unites every prisoner, past and present. Escape. It's a word whispered in the shadows, a hope clung to in the bleakest hours, a fantasy that flickers brighter the longer you're locked away. In the movies, escape is a thrilling, clever affair. Tunnels dug with spoons, bed sheets knotted into ropes, secret codes and daring midnight dashes. But here, in the medieval dungeon, the reality is far less glamorous and often far more absurd. You start by surveying your surroundings, just as any would-be escape artist would. The walls are thick, the stones fitted so tightly together that not even a mouse could squeeze through. The window is little more than a slit, high above your head, and even if you could reach it, the iron bars are set deep into the stone. The door is solid oak, reinforced with iron bands, and the lock is a monstrous thing, its key kept on a ring that never leaves the guard's belt. You have no tools, no blueprints, no helpful accomplice on the outside. Just your wits, your will, and whatever you can scrounge from the scraps of daily life. Still, the dream persists. You and your cellmates trade stories of legendary escapes, some true, most wildly exaggerated. Will claims to have once slipped out of a cell by bribing a guard with a particularly fine loaf of bread. Agnes remembers a woman who faked illness so convincingly that she was carried out, only to vanish into the night. Tom, ever the optimist, insists that there's a secret tunnel beneath. The straw, dug by prisoners long ago and forgotten by the guards. Old Jack, not to be outdone, swears he once saw a man turn into a rat and scurry through a crack in the wall. You suspect that last one owes more to the prison's questionable water supply than to reality. The truth is, escape from a medieval prison is a rare and risky business. The architecture is designed to defeat you at every turn. Thick walls, narrow passages, guards who know every creak and groan of the building. Even if you could somehow get out of your cell, you'd still have to navigate a maze of corridors, avoid the ever-watchful eyes of the jailers, and find your way past the outer gates, which are locked and guarded day and night. And then there's the small matter of the moat, the drawbridge, and the fact that you're probably in the middle of a bustling town, where every stranger is a potential informant. But that doesn't stop anyone from trying. You hear tales of desperate attempts, prisoners who tried to file through the bars with bits of metal scavenged from the kitchen, only to be caught when the guards noticed the filings on the floor. Others who tried to bribe their way out, only to discover that the guards were more interested in keeping their jobs than in a handful of coins. Some tried to feign death, hoping to be carried out with the bodies, but the guards were wise to that trick and made a habit of poking the corpses with sharp sticks just to be sure. There are stories of more creative efforts too. One prisoner, so the legend goes, trained a rat to carry messages between cells, coordinating a mass escape that was foiled only when the rat decided it preferred crumbs to conspiracy. Another group tried to tunnel out, only to hit the town's main sewer and emerge, days later, covered in filth and no closer to freedom. The guards, amused rather than angry, gave them extra rations of beet, reed, after a thorough bath, of course. You and your cellmates can't help but laugh at these stories, the absurdity of it all a welcome relief from the daily grind. The idea of escape becomes a kind of game, a way to pass the time and keep hope alive. You draw imaginary maps in the dirt, plot routes past the guards, debate the merits of bribery versus stealth. Each plan is more elaborate than the last, each flaw more obvious, but the act of planning is its own kind of freedom. Sometimes the fantasy takes on a life of its own. You imagine yourself slipping through the shadows, outsmarting the guards, scaling the walls, and vanishing into the night. You picture the taste of fresh air, the feel of grass beneath your feet, the joy of seeing the sky without bars in the way. The dream is intoxicating, a reminder that no matter how strong the walls, your mind is still your own. But reality always intrudes. The guards are vigilant, the locks unyielding, the walls as solid as ever. You hear the stories of those who tried and failed, prisoners who were caught and punished, their sentences extended, their hopes dashed. The risks are real and the consequences severe. For most, the dream of escape remains just that, a dream, a story to be told and retold, a spark of hope in the darkness. Yet, every so often, someone does manage to slip away. Maybe it's a bribe that finally works, a guard who looks the other way, a stroke of luck that opens a door at just the right moment. Maybe it's a festival in the town, the chaos of celebration providing the perfect cover. Maybe it's simply the right combination of courage, cunning, and desperation. When it happens, the news spreads like wildfire, lifting spirits and fueling new fantasies. For a few days, everyone walks a little taller, hope burning a little brighter. Whether you escape or not, the day is ending. The light fades from the world. Indao, the sounds of the prison grow softer, and you settle back onto your patch of straw, the dream of freedom still flickering in your mind. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new dangers, new stories. But for now, you let yourself imagine what it would feel like to walk out of this place, to leave the dungeon behind and step into the world once more. As you drift towards sleep, you realize that, in a way, you have already escaped, if only for a moment, if only in your mind. And sometimes, that is enough. Night in the dungeon arrives not with a gentle dimming of the light, but with a sudden, absolute darkness that swallows everything. The last sliver of daylight slips away from the high window, and the world outside becomes a memory, distant and unreachable. The torches in the corridor are snuffed out one by one, their smoky glow replaced by a blackness so complete it feels like a weight pressing down on your chest. You lie back on your patch of straw, listening as the sounds of the prison shift and settle into their nighttime rhythm. You might imagine that, after a day of discomfort and uncertainty, sleep would come easily, a welcome escape from the cold and the fear. But in the dungeon, sleep is a complicated thing, a fragile truce between exhaustion and anxiety. Your body aches for rest, but your mind is restless, replaying the events of the day, worrying over what tomorrow might bring. Every creak, every whisper, every distant clang of metal sets your nerves on edge. The sounds of the dungeon at night are different from those of the day. The shouts and laughter fade, replaced by softer, more intimate noises. The slow, steady breathing of your cellmates, the occasional cough or sigh, the quiet rustle of straw as someone shifts position. Somewhere nearby, a rat scurries across the floor, its tiny claws clicking against the stone. Water drips from the ceiling in a slow, irregular rhythm, a lullaby for the desperate and the weary. You close your eyes and try to let the darkness wash over you, to surrender to the pull of sleep. For a moment, you almost succeed. Your thoughts drift, untethered, and you find yourself floating between waking and dreaming. In this in-between place, memories of home mingle with the reality of the dungeon. You remember the softness of your own bed, the warmth of a blanket pulled up to your chin, the gentle hush of a world at rest. You remember the feeling of safety, of knowing that you are cared for, that nothing can harm you in the night. But the dungeon is not a place for peaceful dreams. Sleep comes in fits and starts, broken by sudden noises and flashes of fear. You dream of escape, of running through endless corridors, of doors that never open and windows that are always just out of reach. You dream of home, but the faces are blurred, the voices muffled, the comfort always slipping away just as you reach for it. Sometimes you wake with a start, heart pounding, unsure for a moment where you are or how you got here. There are moments of comfort, fleeting but precious, a cellmate's quiet snore, oddly reassuring in its regularity, the warmth of another body nearby, a reminder that you are not alone, the soft murmur of a prayer whispered into the darkness, offering hope to anyone who cares to listen. You find yourself grateful for these small mercies, these reminders of humanity in a place designed to strip it away. You try to relax, to let your muscles unclench, to find a position that is at least bearable. The straw beneath you is lumpy and scratchy, but you shift and settle, making the best of what you have. You pull your thin blanket, or whatever passes for one, up around your shoulders, tucking your feet in tight to keep out the chill. You focus on your breathing, slow and steady, letting each exhale carry away a little of your fear. Outside your cell, the prison is never truly still. Footsteps echo in the corridor as the night guard makes his rounds, the keys on his belt jangling with every step. Sometimes he pauses outside your door, listening, and you hold your breath, waiting for him to move on. In the distance, someone cries out in their sleep, a wordless sound of pain or longing. The walls are thick, but not thick enough to keep out the suffering of others. You wonder how many nights have passed like this, how many more lie ahead. You think of the people who have slept in this cell before you, their dreams and fears lingering in the air. You wonder if they found comfort, if they found hope, if they ever made it out. You wonder what stories the walls would tell if only they could speak. As the hours pass, your mind drifts. You remember stories told by your cellmates, tales of survival, of kindness, of laughter in the face of despair. You remember the games you played, the songs you sang, the moments of connection that made the day bearable. You hold on to these memories, letting them anchor you in the darkness, reminding you that even here, life goes on. You think, too, of the world outside, the world that keeps turning, oblivious to your absence. You picture the sunrise, the first light creeping over the rooftops, the promise of a new day. You imagine the taste of fresh bread, the feel of clean clothes, the sound of a friendly voice. These thoughts are bittersweet, a reminder of what you've lost, but also a source of hope. If you can survive the night, you tell yourself, you can survive anything. Sleep, when it finally comes, is a patchwork of dreams and waking, of comfort and dread. You drift in and out, never fully at rest, always half listening for danger. But in the quiet moments, when the fear recedes and the darkness feels less oppressive, you find a kind of peace. You are still here, still breathing, still yourself. As dawn approaches, the sounds of the prison begin to change. The guards' footsteps grow more frequent. Voices stir in the cells. First hints of light seep through the window. You stretch, stiff and sore, and prepare to face another day. You wonder what you have learned from this night, what strength you have found, what hope you will carry with you into the morning. The dungeon is still dark, still cold, still unforgiving, but you have survived the night, and that is no small victory. As you rise from your bed of straw, you take a deep breath and remind yourself, you are stronger than you think, braver than you know, and more resilient than you ever imagined. And as the first rays of sunlight touch the stone, you ask yourself, what have you learned from your time in the darkness? As the first pale light of morning seeps through the narrow window, you sit quietly on your patch of straw, the events of your day and night in the dungeon settling around you like dust. The world outside is waking up, but here, in the hush before the guard's footsteps echo down the corridor, you have a rare moment to reflect. What have you learned from your time in this place? What will you carry with you back into the comfort of your own world? The first lesson is empathy. It's easy, from a distance, to judge the people who found themselves behind these walls, to imagine that you would have made different choices, that you would have avoided the mistakes or misfortunes that led them here. But after a day in the dungeon, you understand how thin the line can be between freedom and captivity, between luck and disaster. You've met people who are not so different from yourself, people who loved, who hoped, who tried to do their best in a world that was often unfair. You've seen how quickly a life can change, how easily a single misstep or a stroke of bad luck can land someone in a place like this. You remember Agnes clutching her wooden cross, her crime nothing more than poverty and loss. You remember Tom, whose only sin was trying to feed his family. You remember Will, whose humor and resilience masked a lifetime of hardship. Even the oddballs and the hardened criminals have stories of love, of loss, of dreams deferred. In the dungeon, you learn to look past the labels, to see the person behind the crime, to recognize the shared humanity that binds you all together. The second lesson is resilience. The dungeon is a place designed to break the spirit, to strip away comfort and hope. And yet, you've seen how people adapt, how they find ways to survive, even to thrive, in the harshest conditions. You've watched as prisoners turned scraps of bread into feasts, as they invented games and stories to pass the time, as they found moments of laughter and connection in the midst of suffering. You felt your own strength tested, your patience stretched, your hope challenged, and you've discovered reserves of courage you didn't know you had. You realize that resilience is not about never feeling fear or despair. It's about facing those feelings, acknowledging them, and choosing to keep going anyway. It's about finding meaning in small things, a shared joke, a patch of sunlight, a kind word. It's about holding on to hope, even when the odds are against you. The dungeon teaches you that you are stronger than you think, that you can endure more than you ever imagined. The third lesson is perspective. As you sit in the cold, dark cell, you can't help but think of the comforts you once took for granted. The softness of your bed, the warmth of a blanket, the taste of good food, the freedom to come and go as you please. Even the smallest luxuries, a hot drink, A clean shirt, a quiet moment alone, take on new meaning. You realize how easy it is to overlook these blessings, to let them fade into the background of daily life. The dungeon strips everything away, leaving only what is essential. And in that emptiness, you find a new appreciation for the things that truly matter. You also gain perspective on the progress of the world. The medieval dungeon is a place of suffering, of injustice, of arbitrary power. But it is also a reminder of how far we have come. Today, most people live with rights and protections that would have seemed unimaginable to the prisoners of the past. There are still injustices, still hardships, but there is also hope and the possibility of change. The dungeon is a lesson in gratitude, a call to cherish the freedoms and comforts of the present, and to work toward a world where no one has to endure what you have experienced here. As you prepare to leave the dungeon behind, you carry these lessons with you. You feel a new sense of empathy for those who struggle, a deeper appreciation for the comforts of home, a quiet pride in your own resilience. You know that life will still have its challenges, its moments of fear and uncertainty, but you also know that you have the strength to face them and the wisdom to cherish the good things when they come. You take one last look around the cell, the rough stone walls, the patch of straw, the faint light creeping across the floor. You remember the stories you've heard, the friendships you've made, the moments of hope and humor that sustained you. You know that you will never forget this place or the lessons it has taught you. And as you rise to greet the new day, you feel a quiet gratitude, a sense that, whatever comes next, you are a little wiser, a little stronger, and a little more grateful for the simple, precious gift of freedom. Now, it's time to return to your own world, carrying with you the empathy, resilience, and perspective you've gained in the darkness. The dungeon fades. The cold stone, the scratchy straw, the distant echoes of footsteps and whispered stories all begin to dissolve like mist in the morning sun. You feel the weight of the cell lift from your shoulders, the darkness recede, and the air around you grow warmer, soft, or more familiar. It's time to return gently to your own world. Take a slow, deep breath. Notice the comfort of your own bed, the way the mattress supports you, the way your blanket wraps around you like a gentle embrace. Maybe there's a pillow beneath your head, soft and cool, or the faint scent of clean sheets. The sounds you hear now are different. The quiet hum of your home, the distant hush of the outside world, perhaps the gentle rhythm of your own breathing. You are safe, you are warm, and you are free. Let yourself smile, just a little, at the thought of all you've experienced tonight. You've walked the stone corridors of a medieval prison, shared stories with strangers, faced discomfort and danger, and discovered unexpected moments of kindness and humor. You've learned what it means to endure, to hope, to find light in the darkest places. And now, as you settle back into the present, you can let those lessons linger like a soft glow in your heart. Whatever troubles you carried with you into this night, remember, you are not in a medieval dungeon. You are not at the mercy of a capricious jailer or sharing your space with rats and shadows. You have choices, comforts, and freedoms that would have seemed miraculous to those prisoners of the past. The worries of your day, the little frustrations and disappointments are real, but they are also fleeting, and you have the strength to face them. If you find yourself awake, restless, or anxious, let your mind drift back to the lessons of the dungeon. Remember the resilience you found, the empathy you felt, the gratitude that grew in the darkness. Let those feelings wrap around you, soothing and steadying, reminding you that you are capable of weathering any storm. You have already survived so much, and you are stronger than you know. And if you're ready for sleep, let yourself sink into it, knowing that you are safe and cared for. Imagine the warmth of sunlight on your face, the softness of grass beneath your feet, the laughter of friends, and the comfort of home. Let your dreams carry you wherever you wish to go, far from stone walls and iron chains, into a world of possibility and peace. Thank you for sharing this journey, for opening your heart to the stories of the past, and for allowing yourself a moment of perspective and rest. May you wake refreshed, grateful, and just a little more gentle with yourself and others. Good night, and may your dreams be free.